Okay, this is Dr. Mcdougall quotes part 3. We'll start out with the first quote. With asymptomatic patients, there is zero benefit for screening colonoscopy. Okay, so when the complications are subtracted from the benefits, you end up with zero benefits. That's an important point. I tell you this because that's one of the great things about Mcdougall. He was willing to challenge conventional thinking and wisdom. And believe me, when you do this, you just piss people off. And so, somebody said to Mcdougall, why do you go around criticizing, conventional medicine, things that other doctors are making money off of? And he said, I took an oath to help the patients. I didn't take an oath to help other doctors make money. Okay, so that was a big thing for him to say, that there's zero benefit of screening colonoscopy. He did say the paper suggests that there's likely to be a small benefit from doing screening sigmoidoscopy. A lot of people have had colon polyps go away when they have become low-fat vegans. Okay, I had my colonoscopy about, 20-something years ago because my mother died of colon cancer. The gastroenterologist told me my colon was so normal it wasn't even funny. And the more I thought about it and studied it, the more I decided I will never go do that again. I had it done, by the way, with no anesthesia because I was afraid that the benzodiazepines, like, fentanyl and Versed is a typical pair of sedatives. Fentanyl's an opioid. Versed is a benzodiazepine. And what does it do? It stops your memory. I don't want to mess around with anything that stops my memory. I'm afraid it won't come back as good. So, of course, I got teased by that. My family's like, oh, you enjoyed it. It's like, no, I didn't want to have to make anybody drive me. And I didn't want to take a risk of the sedation. All right. So, anyways, yeah, screening colonoscopy is quite overrated. I mean, if you have a problem, like you have anemia, like you have, chronic blood in the stools, it doesn't seem to be just hemorrhoid, then that's not a screening colonoscopy, that's a diagnostic colonoscopy. Okay. And the other guy you hear a lot about as being a good gastroenterologist is that William Bolshevitz. And he's a smart guy, and I think his book, Fiber Fueled, is good. But what I can tell you is whenever you hear a difference between him and Mcdougall, always go with what Mcdougall says. Mcdougall knows a lot more than him. Mcdougall's an old guy, 77 years old. He's been around a long time. Bolshevitz is smart. He's good. I see that, I liked his book, and I've seen some of his videos that I liked, but I'm just saying he doesn't have the experience. Plus, he's a gastroenterologist himself. He can't criticize colonoscopy. One of the things the public doesn't understand is a doctor has to get along with their colleagues. And if a doctor is criticizing colonoscopy when that's how all his immediate colleagues in his same specialty, his same group are making money, they're going to get pissed off at him. So he can't do that. So anyways, I'll just put that out there for you. So in those debates, that's going to come up. On issues where only Bolshevitz has information, he'll often have some pretty good information. But when there's a disagreement between him and Mcdougall, always go with Mcdougall. So far, from every time I've seen that happen, I've seen that happen on a few topics. The other one I've seen it happen on is how much variety you need. Bolshevitz, he's too impressed by this guy named Knight, who's a researcher on the microbiome, who says, oh, you need variety. That's BS. A lot of these, backward, illiterate, blue zone, National Geographic, damn Buettner communities where they got the great longevity, they're real simple, eating a really simple, basic diet. They're not searching out variety. Okay, the next thing from Mcdougall. Mastectomy doesn't add one day to your life over lumpectomy for breast cancer. Yeah, so he was real big on promoting that. He even promoted and tried to force that into law that doctors be required to provide informed consent and tell the patients that mastectomy provides just as much survival as lumpectomy. And the reason why he says that is because based on his study of the literature, most of the time if a patient truly has a breast cancer that is going to endanger their life, it's already metastatic at the time of diagnosis because you usually can't diagnose it until it starts approaching a centimeter in diameter. And by the time it's approached a centimeter in diameter, you already got micrometastases in other parts of your body. And that's also why being healthy is so important, because being healthy means eating well, sleeping well, manage your stress so you have a good function of your immune system. And it's your immune system that's going to remove those micrometastases, okay? Radiation is a local therapy. Surgery is a local therapy, okay? So what Mcdougall is saying is the horse is out of the barn. There's already micrometastases. Just because you can't detect them yet on a PET scan or other imaging study doesn't mean they're not there. And what's going to decide this game is the function of your immune system. So you want to optimize your immune system. And be careful about chemo. Unless you're sure it works, you're running the risk of wiping out your immune system, and then how's it going to remove the micrometastases? You get the dilemma, theoretically, it can potentially try to remove metastases because it's the therapy that goes throughout the body. But you can only do it for a little while because there's so high a side effects. On the other hand, eating a healthy diet, getting your rest, getting some exercise, maintaining your social support, being religious, having a sense of purpose, all of these things that help you every day. You can do them every single day. That's one big advantage they have over some temporary therapy like a chemo or something. Okay, next thing for Mcdougall. Starch is better than fruits for satisfying hunger. There's no such thing as a fruitarian population. There's no large population that subsists primarily on fruits. Fruits tend to be seasonal, and they don't store as well as starches. That's actually my little line in there. Starches are better able to satisfy hunger than our fruits. Yeah, they're kind of like a slow-release energy pill because of all the fiber and starches. The intestinal enzymes have to peel that fiber off, and it's a gradual process. Then the glucose is absorbed in the blood, and you maintain a normal blood glucose for the most prolonged amount of time after eating starches, especially when they're intrinsic, they're intact, and they've got all their fiber. The more you process them, like if you have instant oatmeal, that's already been sort of chopped up into little pieces, kind of like a smoothie for, eating or drinking fruits and vegetables, such that you get more rapid absorption of the glucose and you get a less prolonged satisfaction of hunger effect. Okay. Dr. Mcdougall continues. 70% of nutrition and health literature is funded by industry. You can't trust it anymore. Sadly, that's true. A ton of the nutrition literature is really just advertisements for whatever company's paying for it. And that's very often the case when it's a single nutrient thing. Like if somebody just says, Brazil nuts are good for you. Most likely that was going to be funded by the Brazil nut industry, okay? A regular researcher is probably not going to want to just study Brazil nuts. And then they say, well, you need them for selenium. Yeah, they got more selenium, but you can get selenium from other plant foods. I used to eat Brazil nuts for that reason, but then I realized I got plenty of selenium for other plant foods, so I stopped doing that. Okay, Mcdougall's next quote. When you change your diet to low-fat vegan, be prepared for a precipitous drop in your blood pressure. And most type 2 diabetics will be able to come off of all their diabetes medication. So what that means is if you're taking medications for high blood pressure or diabetes, you got to watch out when you change to a low-fat vegan diet because your blood pressure will come down so low that's dangerous. So you should make the change a little bit gradually. You should work with your healthcare provider to adjust your medication dosages. Otherwise, you could bottom out your pressure and you could have serious consequences for that. You could faint. You could have a problem if you were driving, operating a heavy machinery or something like that. Same thing with diabetes. If you switch to this low-fat vegan diet while you're taking your old dosages of diabetes medications, you could bottom out your sugar, become severely hypoglycemic, and again, pass out and have a problem, especially if you were driving or operating heavy machinery or something. So don't do that. Make the changes gradually. Do them when you had some time off. Work with your healthcare provider to get your dosages adjusted. And like Mcdougall said, he says he just takes the patient off all these medicines most of the time. You can watch his videos talking about his telehealth, how he manages their blood pressure and their diabetes. He goes into all of that. The bottom line with diabetes is you'd rather have the sugar on the high side than the low side. High side's, a transient issue. Low side's potentially quite dangerous. Same thing with blood pressure. Okay, Mcdougall continues. My low-fat diet treatment of hypertension does not allow high-fat foods like oils, nuts, seeds, and avocados. The main thing that causes high blood pressure is eating high amounts of dietary fat. Okay, that's an important point. The two big things you'll hear people talking about is the effect of sodium and the effect of fat on high blood pressure. So there's the fat camp, which is Mcdougall and Pritikin, and they believe that dietary fat, high amounts of dietary fat, are by far the biggest problem for causing hypertension. Okay, there's other schools of thought like Kempner, who puts a big emphasis on sodium and its effect on causing high blood pressure. Kempner was working with patients that often had relatively severe hypertension, and he was trying to dramatically lower it, down to like 200 milligrams per day in that ballpark. And he noticed a threshold effect. When you get them down really low, you get a big benefit improvement in their hypertension versus Mcdougall's point was that you don't get much of a improvement in high blood pressure when you drop it from just something like 5,000 to 3,000 milligrams per day of sodium. So that's what that whole threshold effect thing is about with regard to hypertension and sodium. Mcdougall continues. Sick people take medications. Healthy people do not take medications. Sick people have surgical scars on their abdomen and their chest. Sick people have regular doctor visits. He had a nice meme about, this big fat guy with a bag full of pills. He says this big fat guy with a bag full of pills goes to his internist, and he goes to him, every couple of months for years. And what has he got going for him 5 years later? A couple extra pills in the bag. Okay, versus you go low-fat vegan, you cure yourself of hypertension, cure yourself of obesity, cure yourself of type 2 diabetes pretty routinely, and potentially of other significant conditions like, autoimmune arthritis, etc. Okay, he says you want to get out of the medical business. The only way to get out of the medical business is to stop being sick. And the only way to stop being sick is to regain your health. And the only way to regain your health is to fix the problem. The problem is the food, okay? And what he says too is if you want the cure, you got to stop the cause. And he, attributes about 75% of disease, him and T. Colin Campbell, about 75% of disease, and I think that sounds about right, is due to poor diet. It's a little more complicated nowadays because there's more and more toxins in the food supply and the water supply, etc. But still, it's in that ballpark. Maybe 70% of disease is caused by that. Because that's what most patients have. If you hear all these fancy things about high-tech medicine and how it helps people, and it does help people for a lot of interesting things. But the typical person is fat, sick, and hypertensive, pre-diabetic or diabetic, and once they hit 55, 60, they're cognitively slowing down. And then it becomes, in my opinion, more and more hopeless because the sort of stupider they get, the less motivation they have, the less energy they have. They just never reverse it. They just keep on cognitively declining, hit the bottom. And I can tell you, patients say stuff to me like that all the time. Oh, I'm too old. I'm too old to change my diet. What good is it going to do now that I'm older? I'm in my 70s. And it's like, dude, you don't understand what's coming. They're going to chop off your feet. They're going to cut your prostate out. You're going to have so much trouble. You don't understand it. The average person just doesn't understand. It's kind of weird talking to them. Their eyes kind of glaze over like I'm talking nonsense when I talk nutrition to them. It's kind of frustrating. A wise person says, gee, I don't really know this. Other people are healthy. Why can't I be healthy? That's a good thing to say. Why can't I? Why can't I be successful? Why not me? Why can't I be the one who optimizes their health? You think that way, then you got a good chance. Okay, Mcdougall continues. The Mcdougall diet is starch, much more so than fruits and veggies, with no animal foods and no oils. You should be eating about 90% of your calories from starch. That's an important point. About 90% of your calories from starch. And then the other 5% from fruits, 5% from vegetables approximately. No animal foods at all, not one bite. No oils, not one drop. When you remove the animal foods and the oils, you remove most of the fat. Okay, like Dr. Mcdougall said, fat is the biggest toxin in the Western diet. Okay. For people trying to lose weight, they should also avoid high-fat plant foods like avocados, coconuts, nuts, seeds, and soy. Starch helps people to lose weight in 3 ways. It's low in fat. The lower the fat, the skinnier the population. It has low caloric density. Starch is a polymer of glucose wrapped in fiber. So that fiber doesn't have the calories. It has very few calories in it. And the point is it stretches the stomach, providing early satisfaction of hunger. And then it slows down absorption because it takes time for the intestinal enzymes to peel the fiber away from the glucose before it gets absorbed into the blood. So it's the best food for satisfying hunger, especially in intact starch. Like I said, instant oatmeal is not going to satisfy hunger as well or for as prolonged amount of time as intact foods. Okay, dietary fat does not satisfy hunger well at all. Okay, simple sugars, you tend to get rebound hypoglycemia. They don't satisfy hunger as well. With aging, a person does not have to develop obesity, hypertension, diabetes, and coronary artery disease. They don't get these in those populations like the blue zone that eat plant diets. Mcdougall says here, people eating the Mcdougall diet do not get these diseases: obesity, hypertension, diabetes, and coronary artery disease. Cooked foods are good. The so-called benefits of raw foods and the stuff about enzymes is exaggerated. Humans have eaten cooked starches for a very long time. Mcdougall pretty much says he thinks that mankind from about the beginning of when they were on Earth, they were eating starches. So is that correct? I don't know for sure, but I do know he studied it more than anyone else. And I also can tell you when it comes to food, I've never seen Mcdougall bullshit or lie. Now, I would say I would not hire him to be my weatherman. And when he gets off of nutrition, I don't have as much confidence, that he knows that as well. But when it comes to nutrition, he's the best one, okay? Let's see here. The human body is always trying to heal. Just give it the foods it needs, like starch, and get your sleep, get some sunshine, and then make yourself happy by helping other people. So that's his advice for how to improve healing and be healthy. So it's kind of simple, basic stuff. And I made a mnemonic for health for like what doctors don't know, and I call it NETS, NETS. So N is nutrition. They don't know nutrition. The answer to nutrition is what Dr. Mcdougall just says here: low fat, low sodium. Well, not so much low sodium, but low fat vegan diet, starch based, no alcohol, no oils. Okay. The next thing is E for epidemiology. Just look around the world. Starch based populations, they're the skinny, healthy ones. T is for toxicology, avoid the toxins. S is for all the stuff that starts with S. Get your sunshine, get your sleep, maintain your social support, have your sense of purpose, and have your spirituality, your religion, whatever it is. All the people that follow one of the major religions are a lot healthier than non-religious people. You can look at the book by Harold Koenig about that. Okay, next thing he says is the human body is always trying to heal. And what he's getting at with that is if you just get out of the way and let the body heal itself, it will do so. So the body, let's say, can heal 2 steps up each day if you just stay out of the way. But if you do things like eat oils, you'll knock it back down a step. And then let's say you're doing something like you're eating dairy. So your body's trying to heal, but you keep knocking it back, so you're not going to make any progress. And if you have more bad habits than that, you're drinking soda pop, drinking alcohol, other things, not exercise and all, you're gonna just keep getting worse. So you've got to make the positive healing things better than the negative things. Like I said, it's like being in a video game, Super Mario Brothers. You're the character in an obstacle course. Do all the things that energize you and help you. Avoid all the things that subtract from you. Okay, Dr. Mcdougall continues. The gladiators were barley man. They felt that they fought best on barley. Sweet potatoes are probably the healthiest food in the world. Okay, so why does he say sweet potatoes are the healthiest food in the world? First of all, they only have 1% of calories from fat. Then the second thing about them is that they have very low protein. Only about 4.5% of their calories come from protein, which is good. You want your protein on the low side. Okay, the next thing is the sweet potatoes. If you look at the Papua New Guinea population, they were eating about 93% of their calories from sweet potatoes. They're fit and energetic people. Okay. And they also, sweet potatoes, being like regular potatoes, are relatively complete. You could only eat potatoes. The only supplement you need to take if you're eating potatoes is like a vitamin B12, methylcobalamin, because when they come out of the ground as tubers, they tend to be complete in their nutrition. Same thing with regular potatoes versus the starches that grow above ground. They're also going to be low in vitamin A, vitamin C, for example. But you can easily get that with 5 to 10% of your calories from fruits and vegetables. Okay. Then he talks about protein. There's this big lie going around, old people are sarcopenic, and in order to prevent that, they need to eat more protein. That's all BS. It's just trying to get you to eat animal foods or protein supplements. Basically, in these blue zone, these backward-ass illiterate people living out in rural areas, they don't take supplements, please. You see these old Okinawans doing push-ups when they're 105 years old. Okay, the Bantu women didn't take protein supplements or calcium supplements. That's all nonsense. So Mcdougall says stay away from that protein supplement game sales pitch. Exercise is good for people. You'll maintain your muscles pretty well if you keep moving and exercising. That's what doing all the blue zones. You just keep busy. Then here's Mcdougall continues. The Atkins diet is the make yourself sick diet. You're sick because you're constipated. You're sick because you're in ketosis and everything that goes with that. Okay, the Kempner diet is the diet for the nearly dead, so try to save people from severe hypertension, save them from severe kidney failure. The Mcdougall diet is for the living, and the Mcdougall diet is very easy to sustain. Once people do it for a while, they like it, and they maintain their health quite well. Type 2 diabetes is 100% curable. People who eat the Mcdougall diet do not get type 2 diabetes. Okay, and then Mcdougall says, why manage type 2 diabetes with pills when you can cure it with diet? Exactly. The typical diabetic, in my experience, is a stupid person, and you talk to them, and they're always like, it's under control. It's under control. I'm taking my pills. It's under control. I don't even need to discuss it. It's under control. And it's like, no, you stupid idiot. You could cure yourself. Why don't you cure yourself? Because it's going to become irreversible soon enough. You're going to destroy all the beta cells in your pancreas. You won't be able to make any more insulin. And then you're going to have to be insulin dependent for life. And there is no hope of a cure. Cure yourself as fast as possible by becoming a low-fat vegan and save yourself. And just don't even have it as a disease. And you don't got to check your sugars all the time. You don't got to be poking yourself with a needle. You don't got to be taking any medication for it. Just eat healthy food the rest of your life. Why not do that? It's so much smarter and better for you. It's not even funny. Okay, now, so that's it for the Mcdougall quotes on this page. I just have a couple related quotes from, first of all, Nathan Pritikin. Nathan Pritikin says, the best way to categorize diets is by the amount of fat. That's an important point. The amount of fat is the most important thing for judging a diet. Okay? There's no such thing as a diet being too low in fat. He showed people that were eating really minimal amounts of fat, less than 1% of calories from fat, doing quite well. And they were just getting omega-6s. They didn't even get any omega-3s. Okay? And he said, I have reviewed the literature on dietary fat. Fat causes lipotoxicity. Fat is bad. Almost all Americans, okay, well, first of all, fat is bad. I've reviewed the literature. Pritikin's best book is the book that's for free, and it's available at the drmcdougall.com website. You just go over there, type in Nathan Pritikin, you'll see his legacy book, and you'll see this big, extensive analysis he made of dietary fat, dietary lipid. And the conclusion he comes to is fat is bad. Fat causes lipotoxicity. I've actually given lectures about that, Pritikin's theory of lipotoxicity. Basically, the fat plugs up your artery, and that messes up all parts of your body, and it also makes tissue hypoxic, and that hypoxia can lead to cancer. It's great. It's brilliant. Pritikin was a genius, okay? The guy had radiation treatments for a problem with his pelvis that led to hematology problems with him, and he eventually died of cancer, but that was from radiation he had many, many years before that. He also had severe coronary artery disease with abnormal EKG, and he reversed all of that. He even allowed his body to go to autopsy, and his coronaries were clean at the time he died in his mid-60s. Okay, Pritikin continues. Almost all Americans are diabetic after dinner because they eat a high-fat diet. So what he's saying is, just like J. Shirley Sweeney tested the medical students in 1927, you feed them a high-fat diet, they fail their oral glucose tolerance test. Same thing with these keto paleo types. They're going to fail their oral glucose tolerance test because they have high insulin resistance. So anyways, Pritikin says, all these Americans, because they eat a high-fat dinner, you test them on oral glucose tolerance tests after their dinner rather than in the morning when they've been fasting overnight, they will test positive for diabetes. So I thought that was amusing. Okay, this is from Ruth Heidrich. She is the lady who survived metastatic breast cancer over 40 years. She's still alive. The most common cause of disease is ignorance. It took me 2 hours to become a vegan. 2 hours of talking to Dr. Mcdougall. Yeah, she knew her life was on the line. She's not going to mess around. She became a vegan. She ate the Mcdougall diet for many years. Later on, she switched to being a raw vegan. The most common cause is these, and that's true. So most people, they all make them sick because they eat the wrong diet, and they're just not. They don't put the effort into learning it. It's not that complicated. Just what's so hard about saying eat a low-fat, plant-based diet, starch-based, whole foods, and no oils and no alcohol? What's so hard about saying that? It's easy to say. Anybody could do that. That's why those healthiest people in those blue zones are all in backwards, illiterate, rural places, other than the Seventh-day Adventists in Loma Linda, Los Angeles suburb in California. So anyways, that's it for today. Page 3, part 3 of Dr. Mcdougall Quotes.